In this video, I wanted to see if I could beat a hardcore Nuzlocke in Pokémon Ruby without using super effective moves. In a Pokémon Nuzlocke challenge, if a Pokémon faints, it's considered dead and must be released. I can also only catch one Pokémon per area. The rest of the rules for this run are shown below and in the description. No matter your experience with Pokémon games, you'll know that learning the type chart and using super effective moves is the fastest way to success. This is doubly so in a Nuzlocke, where landing a super effective hit and taking out a threat before it can even do anything is often the most optimal strategy. But what if you couldn't do that? Is a Nuzlocke without super effective moves even possible? Let's jump into this run and find out. Before we start though, I would ask that you remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. It really helps me out and lets me know you guys are enjoying. If you've got ideas for future runs, let me know. I'm always looking for new ideas. So we start our adventure by being smuggled into Hoenn in the back of the moving truck. I assume this was cheaper than buying us a boat ticket. Thanks mum. We don't even get 30 seconds to stretch our legs before we find out our dad, 2 towns over, couldn't even be asked to greet us on arrival. With such neglectful parents, we do what any 10-year-old would do in this situation, go on a Pokémon adventure. We have to rescue the local professor who seems to be having some issues, so that means starter choices. There's always a correct answer to the starter question in Hoenn Nuzlockes, and that still applies in this run with no super effective moves. Of course, I'm talking about Mudkip, who bodies most of this game. However, I think it'd be more fun to pick randomly. So I decide to pick my starter based on the last digit of my trainer ID, which turns out to be 5. This means we're getting Torchic. Fire types tend to be rare, and once Torchic becomes a Kung Fu chicken, he'll become a monster. So I'm pretty happy to add Daredevil to our roster as we start assembling our team. Daredevil gets to stretch his feathers and take out our rival before we're ready to add our second Pokemon to our team. On Route 102, we catch a Seedot we name Groot, and I'll be completely honest, Groot is kind of awful even when he evolves, but hopefully we'll find a use for him at some point during this run. After our deadbeat dad refuses to give us any attention, we can carry on to Route 104 to catch our next encounter. We find a female Wurmple we name Wasp. Wurmples can evolve into either Beautifly or Dustox, both of whom are pretty useful. Thanks to our level cap of 15, we can actually immediately evolve Wurmple, and on this occasion, Wasp becomes a Beautifly, arguably the less useful of the two. Oh well, with Wasp fully evolved, we can also evolve Groot into Nuzleaf. I'd love it if this made Groot any stronger, but it kinda just turns absolute into regular old trash, so it's not really much of an improvement. Our next encounter is in Petalburg Woods, and we find an adorable Zigzagoon. Zigzagoon is often fairly decent as a speedy normal type attacker, but in this run, because his stab isn't super effective and therefore usable on basically everything, he's actually a really vital member of this team. Welcome aboard, Robin. We have 2 more encounters before the next gym. Just slightly past Rustboro City on Route 116, we find a Wishma. Getting Wishma here is doubly bad. Firstly, Wishma makes Groot look like a decent encounter. In other words, Hawkeye, the Wishma, is just kind of What makes this doubly bad though is the fact that I can't get anything else in Rustboro Tunnel, as the only Pokemon inside is Wishma. This means that Wishma takes up 2 encounters instead of 1. Thanks a lot, you pink little Anyway, now we have Hawkeye, we're ready for the first gym, and we run into our first set of problems. At this point of the game, I have no moves that hit rock types the neutral damage, meaning I'm going to have to try and win this with not very effective attacks. To make matters worse, all of Roxanne's Pokemon are really bulky and hit pretty damn hard. This is going to be a problem. I decide my best bet is starting with Robin and lowering Geodude's accuracy and attack, so hopefully Daredevil can get a KO without taking too much damage. So I start with Robin while Roxanne starts off with Geodude. I immediately start going for growls while Geodude lands 2 rock tombs that hit like a truck, even while being at -2 attack. Luckily, after the first 2 hits, however, Geodude just starts spamming defense curls, so I don't take any more damage as Robin brings Geodude to -6 attack. Somehow I then get insanely lucky as Geodude is brought to -6 accuracy without landing another rock tomb. I need that kind of luck here if I don't want my team going home in body bags. With Geodude at -6 attack and -6 accuracy, I bring Daredevil in. It takes a lot of the embers, but eventually the Geodude does go down while only landing 2 weak rock tombs. That couldn't have gone any better to be honest, but now it's time to deal with the abomination that is Roxanne's Nose Pass. My plan is to switch to Groot, who with Bide does the most damage out of everyone on my team. However, I know I'll actually survive 1 rock tomb here, assuming I don't get crit, so I decide to stay in as Nose Pass goes through a defense curl, and I go through an ember that gets the burn. That's huge, we might actually be able to get through this deathless. Nosepass then proceeds to spam defense curls, allowing Daredevil to bring Nosepass to below half with embers. Eventually though, Nosepass does hit a strong rock tomb, meaning I have to switch into Groot. Luckily though, Groot just has to survive 2 more turns as burn damage eventually takes down Nosepass, winning us our first gym badge of the run. Definitely lucked out there, not losing anyone, and I didn't even have to go with my original plan of using Bide with Groot. Let's hope the rest of this run carries on like that. Thanks to leveling up during that gym fight, Daredevil evolves into Combuskin, and as far as mid-stage evolutions go, Combuskin has a pretty cool design. Before we can even think about heading towards our next gym badge, we have another run-in with Team Magma, and this time they've stolen some documents and a Wingull. Bit of the step down from Gen 2 where Team Rocket literally mutilates Slowpoke, but I suppose Team Magma will step things up later on by, almost destroying the entire world. As a reward for saving the Deather Man's documents, he decides to give us unpaid work. Hooray for child labour! His task involves us travelling across the ocean, and luckily Mr. Briny is so thankful for rescuing his Wingull, he's willing to take us on a boat ride, once he's done doing whatever this is of course. Like, who's chasing who here? Actually, I don't want to know. Anyway, moving on, it's one quick boat trip later and we can catch our next encounters. We fish up a Tentacle and a Magikarp on Route 107 and in Duthord Town itself, and both Namor and Aquaman are easily S-tier encounters. I usually ban Gyarados because she's so good, but because this is before the physical special split, she's not quite as good as she will be in later generations, and I've decided to allow her. I won't be, however, allowing her to learn Dragon Dance, just to keep things interesting. We then catch our last encounter before the next gym, another S-tier encounter. In Granite Cave, we catch a Zubat, who I name Iron Man. I'm kidding, of course we name him Batman. I love Crobat, they're one of my favourite Pokemon to use in Nuzlocke, so I'm excited to get to see what this one can do. With some excellent encounters now added to our roster, we're ready to take on Brawley, and I'm not expecting this to be as much trouble as Roxanne, because at least we have some good resistances against Brawley's fighting types in Wasp and Namor. I decide that Daredevil should be able to get some decent damage in first, so Wasp and Namor can still be healthy when Makuhita comes in. They do basically hit for no damage after all, as their attacking moves are Absorb and Constrict. So I start with Daredevil and Brawley starts with Machop. I decide to start with Double Kick, as I don't want to risk activating Machop's Guts ability with Ember. Double Kick does slightly less than half, as Machop retaliates with a weak Seismic Toss. I assume if Double Kick did that much, there's a chance that Ember might KO Machop here, so I decide to risk it and just miss the KO. That's annoying, but they're not the end of the world. Machop then hits back with a Karate Chop that unfortunately crits and KOs Sweet Daredevil. How's the saying go? Always play around the crit? I clearly didn't, and it cost me my starter. Losing a useful Pokemon always sucks, but losing a starter to a crit hits different. There are many other Pokemon that I would have rather taken this fall, but unfortunately, fate had different ideas. Rest in peace Daredevil, you never got a real chance to shine, but I'll never forget your crutch first turn burn on Nosepass that basically got us through that fight deathless. We now have to somehow find the strength to carry on, and this fight has barely even started. I decide my best bet is Namor, who at least should be able to take a few hits from this thing. Namor goes to Supersonic, but of course Brawley immediately heals Machop back to full HP. This is not going well. I decide to go for Constrict on the next turn, and it does the world's smallest amount of damage. Machop then hits back with a weak Karate Chop. With Namor doing so little damage, I decide while Machop is confused to switch into Wasp. On the switch, Machop only goes for a Leer. Wasp then starts going for stupidly weak Absorbs. Eventually, it looks like Machop might actually go down, but of course Brawley then heals with another Super Potion. I feel like I'm smashing my head against a wall here. This thing will not go down. Wasp is then able to bring Machop back into the yellow before she's hit with a Seismic Toss that scares me enough to switch back into Namor. On the switch, Namor gets hit with another Karate Chop before missing a Supersonic. Machop then lands another Karate Chop that crits and leaves Namor on 8 HP. I'm getting to the point where I'm going to have to start taking risks here, because without some luck, I'm actually going to get wiped. So I stay in with Namor and land a Supersonic, and Machop hits himself in confusion, thank god. I now see a possible out. Machop is low enough to where Robin can probably come in and KO with 2 headbutts, but it does mean I have to hope he can survive the hit on the switch. So I decide to roll the dice on Robin's life, and he survives on 3 HP. Robin for the MVP. Robin then actually misses the KO on Machop by I slither with a headbutt, but luckily it gets the flinch. This allows Robin to get off the second headbutt for the KO. That was Brawley's first Pokemon taken down, but with half my team almost dead, we're not in the clear yet. Makuhita comes out, so I immediately switch into Wasp, who takes a weak knockoff on the switch. Luckily, Makuhita is much easier to deal with than the Machop. Thanks to Absorb's heals and Makuhita's weak damage, Wasp is able to take down Makuhita with a combination of tackles and absorbs with little issues. We made it through the first 2 gyms, and what a nightmare. I was not expecting this to be so difficult. Things just do not go down without super effective hits. Somehow we made it through with only one fallen comrade, so with the second gym conquered, let's carry on with the rest of the game. Thanks to our new level cap of 23, we get some much needed evolutions which will hopefully give our team a bit more power. Batman evolves into the ever reliable Crobat, Aquaman evolves into the monstrous Gyarados, and Robin, the world's luckiest Zigzagoon, evolves into Lanoon. We're then able to hand over our delivery letter to Stephen, who's hanging out in Granite Cave, completing our quest of child labour. Woo! Or maybe it would be completed if we didn't now have to go deliver a package to Slateport City. On our way to Slateport, it does occur to me after meeting Stephen that if we make it that far, and very few types can hit any of his Pokemon for neutral damage. They're all really tanky, being Rock and Steel types, and his Pokemon hit really hard if you can't finish them off quickly. This is a problem for future me to deal with, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't already concerned. Anyway, with those intrusive thoughts pushed to the back of my mind, we can head straight through Slateport to find our next encounter on Route 110. There's a number of different encounters on Route 110, but I'm really hoping for an electric type here, just so I have something that resists the next gym leader, Wattson. My prayers are answered by an adorable little Minun we name Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel will be an excellent supportive electric type to add to our team, so I'm excited to get to use her. After a quick encounter with Team Magma, we're finally able to complete our child labour quest and deliver our package to Stephen. Then it's another easy rival fight before we make it to Marvel City and the third gym leader, Wattson. We just have to beat up Wally before challenging the gym leader. Gotta love beating up a small sickly child. It's time for Wattson and his electric types, who are a problem. Not only do his electric types hit over half our team for super effective damage, getting through steel typing without super effective moves is going to be a nightmare. I'm hoping that Marvel, who resists electric attacks, will be able to hit fairly hard with our own Thunderbolts, as Watson's team isn't super specially defensive. Fingers crossed this goes well. I start with Robin and Wattson starts with Magnemite. Robin immediately lands a headbutt that admittedly does less than I'm hoping for. Magnemite then lands a Thunder Wave, but before the fight I equipped Robin with a Cherry Berry, so Robin is immediately cured. A second headbutt then brings Magnemite to just under half, and Robin gets hit with a second Thunder Wave, which this time sticks. Robin is then able to get off a third headbutt that leaves the stupid magnet in range of being KO'd, as Magnemite just misses a Sonic Boom. Unfortunately though, Robin did just enough damage to cause Wattson to heal on the next turn, and then Robin is fully paralysed. Almost KO'd that with no damage taken. Robin is then able to bring Magnemite back to below half with 2 more headbutts without taking any damage, but he does get hit with a Supersonic. Now, I'm all for taking risks, but I'm hoping to get through this part without dealing with confusion, so I decide to switch. I decide Hawkeye is probably my best bet here, and also the least useful member of my team, so if I lose him, it's not the end of the world. As I switch in, Hawkeye dodges another Sonic Boom. This Magnemite appears to be slightly blind, which is helpful. Magnemite does eventually land a Sonic Boom through a good chunk, before Hawkeye lands a Supersonic. Supersonic, Sonic Boom, I feel like I'm going to take a hit any second and rings are going to fly out. Magnemite then lands a really hard Thundershock that is slightly healed by a berry, and Hawkeye lands a not so hard Astonish. On the next turn, Magnemite breaks out Confusion and lands a second Thundershock, bringing Hawkeye into the red. Unfortunately for Hawkeye, I'm going to have to make a sack here. I salute as Hawkeye stays in, takes a third Thundershock, and goes down. I would say my team would never recover from such a devastating loss, but I'd be lying, so let's just move on. Have fun in hell, Hawkeye. Hawkeye's death at least means Marvel can come in and finish off Magnemite with a single Thunderbolt. Knew I was lucky to have caught a Minun. Second for Wattson is Voltorb, who I'm pretty worried about because it knows self-destruct. Luckily, I have another Pokemon I'm willing to watch explode in a giant fireball, so I send in Groot. Groot is able to get off some weak damage, but eventually Voltorb does explode, taking Groot with him. Have fun down there in hell with Hawkeye, Groot. Don't hit your ass on the way out. Only one Pokemon left, and I'm hoping Marvel will be able to handle this thing pretty well. Or I'm in trouble, to be honest. So I send in Marvel as Wattson sends in Magneton. Funnily enough, on turn 1, we both play, I game the snap, and both land Thunder Waves. Difference is I win as I equipped Marvel with a Cherry Berry before the fight starts, so she's immediately cured. I then go through an Encore to lock Magneton into Thunder Wave, so of course this means Marvel gets paralysed on the next turn again, but I'm hoping it will allow her to get off some good damage before she takes any hits. My gamble pays off as Marvel is able to get off 2 Thunderbolts and bring Magneton to 50% HP before Encore ends. This means Marvel only has to take 1 Sonic Boom before getting off 2 more Thunderbolts for the KO. Third gym down. We lost 2 Pokemon during that fight, but considering they were the 2 Pokemon I was completely fine with losing, I think that went really well. We've made it through the early game. We've got a fairly long walk before we can get to our 4th gym badge in Latheridge Town, but we do get to pick up some useful encounters along the way. Firstly, on Route 112, we catch a Numel, who is a Pokemon that is good against electric types, which our team desperately needs, so I'm happy to add the Human Torch to our roster. Skipping all the way forward to Meteor Falls, we find a Solrock we name Superman. Superman is really useful with his unique typing and his immunity to ground type attacks, so he'll definitely be a key team member in some upcoming fights. Before we can get to that though, we have to stop Team Magma, whose plan seems to involve blowing up a volcano. Jesus, that's kinda hardcore. Stepping up from stealing a Wingull, I see. I do question what the purpose of this plan is though. Like, I know they want to create more land, but looking at the map of Hoenn, wouldn't exploding a volcano in the center of the region just destroy the land that already exists? They might not have thought this through. Luckily, we're able to stop them with no issues before we can find out what their goals really were. With that, it's a straight hop down the volcano to Latheridge Town and our 4th gym badge. Flannery is our next opponent, but she only has 1 threatening Pokemon in Torkoal, so I'm not too worried about this fight. I start with Robin and Flannery starts with Slug, don't even think about it. Luckily, the Slug Pokemon that Flannery is using goes down to 2 Headbutts. I think Flannery is really trying to get me to say the name of this Pokemon here, because why else would she have 2 of these things on her team? Luckily, this one goes down just as easy with 2 Headbutts, while getting off the strong Flamethrower. No more Slugmas. There, happy? I said it. Flannery's last Pokemon is Torkoal, who is really physically bulky, so there's not much point leaving Robin in here. I decide my best bet is Gyarados, who should be able to bypass Torkoal's massive defenses with Dragon Rage, which always does a guaranteed 40 damage. So Aquaman comes in on an Overheat, which misses. My luck this run is crazy. Aquaman is then able to hit a Dragon Rage that very nearly does over half. Good thing about defensive Pokemon is they often have low HP. Of course, then Torkoal hits a Body Slam that paralyzes. Can't have all the luck. Another Dragon Rage then leaves Torkoal on a slither of HP as Aquaman takes another Body Slam. As Flannery heals, a 3rd Dragon Rage brings Torkoal back down to half, but then on the next turn another Body Slam leaves Aquaman really low and she gets fully paralysed, meaning I'm gonna have to switch here. Luckily, Superman is able to tank a Body Slam on the switch with no real issues, despite the fact that Body Slam paralyzes another one of my Pokemon. Superman is then able to finish off Torkoal with a single crit Psychic. Easiest gym fight so far, hopefully that's a sign of things to come. It was not. With 4 gym badges down, it's time to go beat up our deadbeat dad. Before that though, we do have 2 things to do. Thanks to our new level cap, we can evolve Namor into Tentacruel. Tentacruel is a monster, and I never get to use them, so I'm pretty excited to finally have one on my team. That almost sounds like something someone would say right before a Pokemon dies. The other thing we can do before battling our dad is collect a fossil from the desert area of Route 111. I think the Gen 3 fossils get slept on a lot. Both have really cool designs, and both can be argued to be useful in different ways. I decide on Limlip this time around, so we can quickly go give our fossil to a man who thinks he's invented reviving Pokemon fossils. He's in for a shock. Once he's done, Swamp Thing is born and we're ready to challenge our dad. Norman is always scary, and in Ruby and Sapphire he has 2 Slakings. Luckily, my no super effective moves rule doesn't really take effect here, as I have no fighting types, so fingers crossed this goes well. I start with Aquaman and Norman starts with Slaking. My plan is to lower Slaking's attack by getting off as many Intimidates as I can. So I switch into Superman, who takes a Facade like it's nothing. I then switch back into Aquaman to bring this giant ape down to -2 attack. I then switch back into Superman, who of course gets crit. I was hoping this wouldn't happen so early, as now it's much more risky to switch back into Superman. Because of this, I decide to switch into Marvel. Once Marvel is in with no damage taken, she's able to get off 2 charms while only being hit by a weak Facade. Perfect. The Slaking is now on -6, and apart from a nasty crit, we didn't take too much damage. I then decide to switch into Robin, who is able to get off 2 weak headbutts before being hit by a Yawn. I don't want to have to deal with sleep here, so I decide to switch into Namor, who should be able to hit pretty hard with Bubble Beam. So I switch in on the turn Slaking's Truant is activated. Namor is then able to hit really hard with a Bubble Beam, but unfortunately, Slaking then hits back with a crit Facade, one-shotting Namor. Like, I knew a crit would do a lot, but I wasn't expecting that to one-shot there. Losing Namor sucks, he would have been so useful in so many upcoming fights. I would say I needed to play around the crit, but I don't think anything on my team could have actually taken that hit. So rest in peace Namor, you'll be sorely missed. I decide Batman has a pretty high chance of KOing Slacking in just one move as it's on such low HP. So Batman comes in and I go through a wing attack that just barely misses the kill. That's so annoying because now Norman is going to heal on the next turn. I decide my best bet is brute force at this point, so I start spamming wing attacks. Batman manages to bring Slaking to below 50% HP with 3 wing attacks before getting hit with a yawn. I still don't really want to play around with sleep, so I switch into Aquaman. Aquaman is then able to get off a Dragon Rage that very nearly KOs before being hit by a yawn. This is getting annoying. Luckily, the Slaking is now low enough that Robin can come in and get a headbutt for the KO. That was only the first Slaking. I'm going to lose my mind. Norman then immediately sends out the second Slaking, and I decide either with my Pokemon on low HP, Intimidate is my best bet. So I get off 2 Intimidates without any annoying crits before switching into Marvel, who is able to get off the charm. One more Intimidate from Aquaman then brings Slaking to -5. I don't really want to risk any more switches, so I start wearing down Slaking with Dragon Rages. Aquaman is able to get off 3 Dragon Rages before Slaking gets another crit, bringing Aquaman down into the red. So many crits, this is getting silly. I decide to switch into Batman, who hasn't taken any damage yet, and Norman fully heals the Slaking. I'm actually going to lose my mind, this is driving me mad. Luckily, after many more wing attacks from Batman, despite the Slacking healing with a slack off, Slaking does eventually go down. Thank God, but the worst part is, I've still got a Vigoroth to deal with, and this thing hits pretty hard. I stay in and get off one more wing attack with Batman, but Facade leaves Batman in range of being KO'd next turn. My only other Pokemon that hasn't taken too much damage is Robin, so I decide he's my best bet of not losing anyone else. So I switch in and Robin takes a lot from a Facade. Robin is then able to get off 2 returns for the KO while being brought down to 8 HP. That was a rough fight that turned into a real slog. Somehow we made it through without it turning into a slaughter, but it was a pretty close thing. 5th gym badge down, 3 more to go. Before we can even think about the next gym however, we've got a couple of bits to get through. Firstly, we can evolve the Human Torch into Camerupt, meaning he'll actually be useful. On the way to Fortree City, we're able to find another useful electric type encounter, an Electrike we name Flash. Marvel is great, but she's more of the supportive electric type, so Electrike will be another useful encounter when we need something with a bit more bite. We're then able to find another good encounter on Route 119, an Oddish who we name Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman wouldn't fit. Oddishes are great with sleep powder support, so I'm happy to add her to the team. While exploring, we also run into this lady's house, and I don't want to judge, but what's with all the birds, lady? When I question her about it, she talks about the Cave of the Origin and reviving Pokemon spirits, and that explains the 6 wing goals how? People in Hoenn have some strange hobbies. We've then got another Team Magma encounter to deal with that once again proves to be nothing really but a waste of time. Speaking of waste of time, May then shows up to get beaten very easily for the 100th time this run. Like, what even is the rival in this game? They're so bad. Anyway, we're then able to make our way to Fortree City, and after gaining the Devon Scope from Steven, we're able to remove the Kecleon, blocking the door to the gym, and challenge the gym leader. To be honest, if I was as useless as a Kecleon, I'd probably want to turn invisible myself. So now we've got a flying type gym leader to deal with, Winona. Winona has a dragon dancing Altaria, so this could get ugly fast. To make matters worse, I'm doing this fight fairly late, and I'll be completely honest with you guys. I kind of go into this fight in autopilot mode and design a team around the idea that I'm actually able to use super effective moves. Force of habit, I guess. I start the fight before I realise my mistake though, so I'm just going to have to run with it. Winona starts with Swallow and I start off with Torch. Annoyingly, I'm going to have to risk activating Swallow's Guts here because the only move I have on Torch that can touch this bird is Ember. So I start going for Ember as Swallow starts going for double teams and aerial aces. It's a slow process due to the fact that Torch keeps missing, but eventually Torch does take down this dumb bird and survives on 26 HP. Torch probably won't be much use to the rest of the fight now, but at least he didn't get the burn and took down the Swallow. Second is Pelipper, who can be annoying with Protect and Confuse Ray, but isn't too much of a threat. I switch into Robin, who takes a water gun really well on the switch. Robin is then able to get off 2 returns, but leave Pelipper on basically no HP. Of course then Robin is hit with a Confuse Ray. I decide I don't want to play around confusion here, and I know Winona will probably heal on the next turn, so I switch into Batman. Batman is able to get off a really strong fly, but then of course is also confused. So it's back to Robin, who crits with a return, taking down the stupid Pelipper. 2 down, 2 to go. Next the Winona is Skarmory, so I switch into Aquaman. For a nice change, Aquaman is able to finish off Skarmory with no real issues with Surf. I was starting to forget what it's like to take down a Pokemon easily. Last the Winona is Altaria, who unfortunately probably won't go down without a fight. My plan is to set up Superman with Cosmic Powers while Altaria sets up Dragon Dances and then take out this thing with Psychics. So I switch into Superman in on an Aerial Ace, which barely does anything. I then start trying to set up Cosmic Powers, but unfortunately though, Dragon Breath from Altaria does a lot more than I'm expecting and then paralyzes Superman. That's okay, as long as I can get off a couple Cosmic Powers without getting fully paralyzed, I should be fine. Of course, on the next turn I get fully paralyzed again. I'm now low enough to where there's no point trying to set up Superman, so I decide to go through a Hail Mary and go through an Overheat, which I am hoping will do okay damage even if it's resisted. Never mind then. New plan. Hope Aquaman can KO with Dragon Rage before Altaria starts going through Dragon Dances. So I switch into Aquaman as Altaria gets off another Dragon Breath. Aquaman is then able to start getting off Dragon Rages that do a decent amount. Unfortunately, after 2 Dragon Rages and a Surf, Altaria survives on what can't be more than 5 HP. Of course this means Winona heals on the next turn. Aquaman is then able to bring Altaria really low with another 2 Dragon Rages, but unfortunately gets paralyzed and is brought really low with another Dragon Breath, meaning I have no choice but to switch here again. I decide on Batman, and Altaria is low enough where this shouldn't be a problem, right? Of course not. As I try to get off a fly through the KO, Batman is also paralyzed with a Dragon Breath and then fully paralyzed. This thing just won't go down. Batman is able to tank another Dragon Breath that brings him to below half and hit a bite that of course doesn't KO. Batman is then paralyzed again before finally getting the KO on the next turn with the second bite. We actually won that somehow with no deaths, but every single one of these gym fights is becoming a major slog to get through. I feel that this run is aging me. If you've made it this far into the video, a like and subscribing for more content would be really appreciated, as I'm not lying when I say this run was starting to get painful to play. Luckily, we've only got 2 more gyms left. We've got a lot to get through before we can get to the 7th gym. First of all, thanks to our new level cap of 42, we can evolve Flash into Manectric and Swamp Thing into Crater Lily. Before we can get to Lily Cove, we also catch a Duskull on Route 121. Duskull is always super useful, being a bulky ghost type with Will-O-Wisp, so Raven should make a great support Pokemon in the future. Once we arrive in Lily Cove, we have one last fight with our rival, where she hasn't even fully evolved her starter, and this is our final battle with her. I never understood that. It's like they cut her from the rest of the game or something? Maybe they just forgot. Who knows? Oh well, May, you suck. Team Magma is back again, so on our way to stop them, while climbing Mount Pyre, we find a Meditite who we name Wanda. Meditites tend to be pretty mid, but Wanda has huge power, which massively increases her attack, so she should be pretty useful. We're then given the Red Orb and have to chase Team Magma all the way back to Slateport. I do find it amusing that they announce with a microphone that they're stealing the submarine. It's really not very subtle. We then have to raid their base in Lily Cove, a lot of back and forth in this part of the game. The only benefit of raiding their base though is that I do get another encounter, an Electrode we name Rocket. Rocket has one purpose. Can you guess what it is? Well, if you can't guess, you'll see his purpose very shortly. We've got one more encounter before the next gym, as we're able to fish just outside Most Deep City, 124, and catch ourselves a Whalmer we name Hulk. I need as many electric and water types as I can get, so Hulk is an excellent addition to the team. Thanks to our level cap of 42, we're able to evolve Wanda into Medicham, and with that we're ready for the 7th gym. Tate and Liza shouldn't be too much of an issue here, because despite being a double battle, they only have 2 Pokemon. So Tate and Liza start with Lunatone and Solrock, while I start with Rocket and Wanda. Rocket's entire life has been leading up to this moment, so with no hesitation, I click Detect on Wanda, and then Rocket explodes in a massive fireball, which really doesn't do that much. Oh well. Luckily both Solrock and Lunatone go for setup moves, so it's not like Wanda takes any damage, but I was expecting that to do a little more, I'm not gonna lie. I then send in Flash, and on the next turn, Wanda and Flash are able to double up into the Solrock and get their KO with the Thunderbolt and High Jump Kick. Lunatone then puts Wanda to sleep with the Hypnosis. This battle is pretty much won already, even with Wanda taking a nap, as another Thunderbolt brings Lunatone really low on the next turn, and then on the following turn, Wanda wakes up, meaning a Psychic and Thunderbolt is able to take down the moon. Easiest gym fight so far, and I kinda needed that break to be honest, as my sanity has been slowly depleting this run. We're in the final stretch, and we've just got to wrap up the Team Magma arc before we can get to the last gym. This involves chasing Team Magma under the ocean, and there's a load of strength puzzles down here, but luckily I'm so smart I get all of these strength puzzles on the first try, 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 on the first try. It's then time to confront Maxie for the last time, and as always he turns out to be a pushover. He then awakens Groudon with the wrong coloured orb, meaning Groudon is either returning to his home planet or he's going to go destroy the world. We'll find out when we get out of this cave. I do find it amusing that Maxie's plan seems to have only gone wrong because he picked up the wrong coloured orb. Like, had he picked up the red orb, would he have been able to control Groudon and create new land? Because that sounds pretty cool, to be honest. Unfortunately, because Maxie is colourblind, that doesn't happen and we have to go sort out his mess. This involves walking up to Groudon, telling him to chill, and then leaving. World saved. No one really says thank you though, so I guess it's time to challenge the final gym leader, Wallace. Just got to get this ice puzzle done on the first try. On the first try. Anyway, after evolving Hulk into Whale Lord, I'm ready for the final gym. Wallace shouldn't prove to be too much of an issue here, as most of this Pokemon are kind of bad, honestly. I start with Aquaman, and the 8th and strongest gym leader in Hoenn starts with a Love Disc. I mean really. Love Disc actually outspeeds and lands a lovely kiss before surviving an earthquake. Maybe I was too quick to judge. Wallace then heals on the following turn as Aquaman hits herself in confusion. Please Aquaman, just KO the Love Disc for Christ's sake. Luckily, my prayers are answered and then Love Disc goes down to a high roll earthquake. Next is Wishcash, who also goes down to 2 earthquakes. Easy. Third is Celio, who also goes down to 2 earthquakes, but does hit a crit aura beam that does a decent amount. Fourth is Milotic, and I decide to risk a crit and get off one more earthquake with Aquaman before being brought low enough to where I'm going to need to switch. I decide on Wanda, who tanks an ice beam on the switch. Wanda then lands a high jump kick that very nearly KOs while taking a second powerful ice beam. Now Wanda is low enough where that if high jump kick misses here, she will go down, and I'm pretty sure Psychic will KO as Milotic is really low. So I go through a Psychic instead of high jump kick and it does next to nothing. I kind of assume Stab Psychic would have at least done a little bit more there. Wanda is still brought really low by a Water Pulse, meaning I'm going to have to switch. I decide on Robin as Wallace heals Milotic back to full. Robin is able to get off 3 strong returns, but unfortunately gets confused right as Milotic is brought into range of being KO'd. Now it's probably much safer to switch into something else here to avoid losing Robin, but it's much more fun to say fuck it and click Hyper Beam instead. Can't believe that actually worked. Milotic down, meaning I've only got Seeking left to deal with. You'd think I'd be in the clear here, but the Seeking has 9 lives, I swear. Firstly, I switch into Batman, who brings the Seeking to below half with a Fly. Seeking then hits a really hard Water Pulse, which of course gets the confusion, meaning Batman hurts himself instead of just winning me the match. This means I have no choice but to swap into Swamp Thing, who at the very least is able to get off 2 Rock Tombs with no issues for the KO. That's the final gym taken down. I will be honest, at this point I couldn't wait for this run to be over, as I've slowly been losing my mind at how long these fights are taking, but we've got one final hurdle to go and then we've won. Only problem is that final hurdle is made out of steel. Before we can get to the Elite Four and the champion though, we have Victory Road and some team building to do. Luckily, Victory Road proves to be no issue, and we get to beat up Wally one final time as a nice reward. On to team building. I decide my best options for handling Steven are electric and water types, as they're the only moves that can hit steel types for neutral damage. Because of this, it makes sense to go underwater and find ourselves a Chinchou who's both a water and electric type. With Chinchou added to our roster, we can evolve Spider-Man immediately into Lantern, and then we can evolve Wonder Woman, the Oddish, into Bellossom, who is vital for what I've got in mind. With that, we can see who I've decided to bring for this Elite Four. Robin, the Ladoon, Aquaman, the Gyarados, Superman, the Solrock, Spider-Man, the Lantern, Wonder Woman, the Bellossom, and Hulk, the Whale Lord. I've got a plan, so fingers crossed our brave heroes have what it takes. First up for this Elite Four is Sydney. Now, I'll be completely honest, I might be able to brute force this Elite Four, but if I did that, I would end up losing a couple Pokemon, and with how much of the problem Steven is going to be, I can't afford to risk losing anyone. Luckily, I have a secret weapon to avoid this risk, and that of course is Robin. So I start with Robin, and Sydney starts with Mightyena. So I start plan Boy Wonder and immediately go for Belly Drum. There is a slight risk here with this plan, in that if Mightyena goes to the sand attack, everything falls apart. Luckily, this doesn't happen, and Robin is able to get off a Belly Drum with no issues. Now for the hard part of the plan, clicking return 5 times. 1 down, 3 to go. Second for this Elite Thor is Thebe, the Ghost type trainer. My Robin sweep plan won't work here. This means I'm gonna just have to brute force it and hope for the best. So I start with Spider-Man and Thebe starts with Dustclops. Spider-Man is immediately able to bring the Dustclops to below half with a single Thunderbolt, and then Dustclops takes itself out with a curse. Good start. Second is Thebe's second Dustclops. Did well on that one, Thebe. Unfortunately, this Dustclops knows Earthquake, so I'm gonna have to switch here. I decide on Aquaman, who is immune to the Earthquake. Dustclops goes Thor on the switch. Aquaman then gets off a strong Earthquake, while Dustclops gets off a weak Shadow Ball that annoyingly lowers Aquaman's special defense. I don't really want to take a risk here with Aquaman's lowered special defense, so I decide my best bet is to switch into Hulk, who immediately gets confused on the switch. Great. So I then decide to switch back into Aquaman, and Dustclops lowers her defense again. This thing is being very annoying. Screw it, I'm not switching out again, so I go for a second Earthquake. Dustclops survives on what looks like 1 HP, and then hits back with an Ice Beam that crits and freezes. Are you actually kidding me? Luckily, a Citrus Berry keeps Dustclops out of range of Thebe healing, meaning I can bring in Hulk, who finishes off Dustclops with a single Surf. What was that thing's luck? Surviving on 1 HP, lowering my defense twice, landing a Confuse Ray, getting a freeze and a crit. Madness. Luckily, Thebe's next Pokemon, Bayonetta, goes down a lot easier, as 2 Surfs from Hulk are enough for the KO. Fourth is Sableye, who survives the Surf and then is able to get off an Attract. My luck has already been bad this fight, so I decide not to take a risk and switch into Spider-Man as Thebe heals Sableye with a full restore. Spider-Man is then able to land a Thunderbolt that very nearly KOs as Sableye lands another Attract. Now I'll be honest, my patience is gone at this point, so I go for another Thunderbolt and Spider-Man luckily breaks through the Attract and KOs the Sableye. Last is Bayonetta, who gets off a strong Shadow Ball before being KO'd with a single crit Thunderbolt. That wasn't too bad all things considered, other than the cheating Dustclops. 2 down, 2 to go. Luckily, Glacier is next, and she actually has 0 risks associated with her, unlike the other members of this Elite Thor. So I start with Robin, and Glacier starts with Gaily. Robin is able to completely safely get off a belly drum, while Gaily sets up a hail, and from there it's a clean sweep with return on all of Glacier's Pokemon. Easy. Last for this Elite Four is Drake, who is a slight issue when it comes to my Robin sweep plan. See, Drake will start with Shelgon, and Shelgon has Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb will lower Robin's speed, meaning he won't be able to outspeed and sweep Drake's whole team. Luckily, this is where Wonder Woman comes in. I just have to hope for 2 turns of sleep. So I start with Wonder Woman, and Drake starts off with Shelgon. Wonder Woman immediately lands a sleep powder, just gotta pray here that Shelgon stays asleep as I bring Robin in and go for belly drum. And it stays asleep. We've done it, that just means it's a clean sweep of Drake's team as they all go down to a single return. We've made it through the Elite Four thanks to Robin, but now the real fight starts. I've been dreading this since I realised while fighting Roxanne how much of a pain Steven's team is going to be. Not only are they all really bulky and hard to get rid of, but they all hit like a truck, especially Metagross. So here we go, no turning back now. Can our friends and allies take down Steven Stone? Let's find out. I start off with Hulk and Steven starts off with Skarmory. Hulk is able to get off 2 strong Surfs that just missed the KO as Skarmory gets off 2 weak Air Laces. As Steven heals, Hulk is able to get off 1 more Surf before I decide I need to heal. So I go through a rest and immediately wake up thanks to an equipped Chesto Berry, while Steven gets off another Aerial Ace. Of course the AI is a cheater because as soon as I've used up my 3 rest and Chesto Berry, Skarmory goes for a Toxic. That's really annoying because I was hoping to use rest to cure Toxic and I can't really do that anymore without risking a lot of sleep turns. Luckily, it only takes 2 more Surfs and Steven's first Pokemon goes down. Second is Aggron, who I'm pretty sure will go for Thunder here, so I'm safe to switch into Spider-Man, who is immune. I can then switch into Aquaman, who is immune to Earthquake. It's then a case of switching between Aquaman and Spider-Man until Aggron runs out of Thunder PP. Once it's out, it's also taken 5 Intimidates, which means Spider-Man is safe to take Aggron down with 2 Thunderbolts while taking a very weak Earthquake. Plan's working pretty well so far, but next is Metagross, and this thing is insane. I can't poison it, there was no safe way to set up for this fight. I can't intimidate it due to Clear Body. I also can't KO it without losing half my team, which would mean a wipe as I have Steven's remaining Pokemon to deal with. The only plan I could think of here is risking a Sleep Powder with Wonder Woman, which has its own risks. Before I can even think of that though, I have to get Wonder Woman in safely. That means someone has to go down here, and the least useful member of my team at this point, I hate to say it, is Robin. So I switch in on an earthquake that does a decent chunk, and then Robin is able to get off one final crit turn in defiance of the inevitable before going down to a meteor mash. Sometimes losing a Pokemon hits different, and this is one of those times. Robin has been on my team since the start, and he came in clutch so many times. There's so many moments where he should have gone down, but Robin always pulled through. Now through Robin's sacrifice we have a chance against this monster. Rest in peace, buddy, we're gonna win this for you. Thanks to Robin, I'm able to bring Wonder Woman in safely, but I need this sleep powder to connect, or I will most likely lose the run. So I click sleep powder, with Robin looking over us, and it lands. We're not out of the woods yet. I need Metagross to stay asleep for at least a couple turns, so Spider-Man and Aquaman can get the KO. So I switch into Spider-Man, and Metagross stays asleep. Just need a bit more luck, and Metagross stays asleep, letting Spider-Man get off a Thunderbolt that crits. Robin really was watching over us there. That was insanely clutch. We're almost through this, just 3 more Pokemon to go. 4th is Cradylily, and Cradylily is a bit of an issue. 4 out of 5 of my Pokemon are weak to it, and Wonder Woman can't survive many hits, so I decide my best bet is PP stalling again. By switching between Superman and Aquaman, I'm able to run Cradily out of Ancient Power PP. It just takes 7 years. Cradily keeps going for Confuse Ray. It's a bit risky because Cradylily could get an Omni boost, but I don't really have many other options here. Eventually, it runs out of PP, meaning Aquaman can stay in and get off a Toxic. It's now a waiting game until the Cradily is low enough for Spider-Man to come in, hit a weak Thunderbolt because I misclicked instead of going for Surf, and watch as Poison takes it out. Next is Claydol, which means more stalling. This might be the longest Pokemon fight I've ever had. But stalling with Superman eventually means Claydol goes down to a combination of flamethrowers and toxic damage. 1 more to go and it's Armaldo. I decide to stay in with Superman, who has gotten off a couple cosmic powers, meaning he should survive the water pulse here. So Superman sets up a Reflect, but of course my luck in this fight finally runs out, and Superman gets crit, going down. Superman, you were a vital part of this run, and your rock typing saved us many times from attacks that would have killed other members of my team. I'll never forget you, you big floating rock star thing. With Superman down, Spider-Man is able to come in and get off 2 Thunderbolts before being hit with an Ancient Power, but finally gets the Omni boost. That would be scary, but it's a bit too late at this point to be a problem, as Spider-Man is able to get off 1 more Thunderbolt for the victory. We actually did it. Somehow against all odds we managed to beat this run on the first try. Robin's sacrifice gave us the win. I'm going to be honest, this run was probably one of the most difficult I've attempted, and a lot of fights became a real slugfest. It was definitely an experience though. I am thrilled we got through it at the end there. I really wasn't expecting it. I hope you all enjoyed the run, as it took a lot of work to get through. Remember to like if you enjoyed and subscribe for more content in the future. There's probably a monologue coming up next, and then maybe a ROM hack. Who knows? Stay tuned for more. Bye bye for now.